Have you ever given so much of yourself that you were left drained, disappointed, or even betrayed? What if your kindness, meant to heal, was actually hurting you and those you tried to help? In today's story, we uncover the truth behind the Zen wisdom of knowing when to help and when to let go. Welcome to the channel Beyond Nirvana. Today we will share a story of a humble monk who learned a powerful lesson about the limits of compassion and the importance of discernment. The compassionate monk master Riken was known throughout the mountain regions of Japan as the monk with the golden heart. From dawn till dusk, villagers lined up at the gates of his Zen monastery asking for help, food, advice, prayers, even money. And every single time, Riken gave. He believed that helping others was the purest form of enlightenment. But inside, something was changing. He often felt exhausted, emotionally drained, and spiritually disconnected. Though he tried to meditate, he couldn't find stillness. Despite his efforts, the monastery began to struggle financially. His fellow monks whispered their concerns, but Riken silenced them with his unwavering faith and kindness. One day, a stranger named Kuro arrived at the monastery. Dressed in simple robes, his eyes held a quiet fire. He asked for shelter, and Riken, of course, offered it without hesitation. Kuro watched in silence for days, noticing the imbalance. Riken's kindness was being consumed like an endless resource, never appreciated, often taken for granted. As he observed, a quiet lesson began to form in his heart. Little did Riken know, this encounter would shake the foundation of everything he believed in. And so began a new chapter in his spiritual journey, one that would challenge everything he thought he knew about compassion. The burden of constant giving Kuro observed the monastery closely. He noticed how people kept coming, not to learn, but to take. They didn't stay for prayers. They didn't help in the gardens. They came, complained, and left with full bellies and lighter hearts, leaving the monks overwhelmed and the monastery depleted. "Why do you let them take so much from you?" Kuro asked one evening, as he and Riken shared tea beneath a cherry blossom tree. Riken smiled. "Because it is my duty. Compassion knows no limit." "But isn't compassion also wisdom?" Kuro replied. "When a tree gives all its fruit away in one season, it dies before the next." Riken was silent. He had never considered that his giving could cause harm, not just to himself, but to the very people he aimed to help. Helping without discernment wasn't kindness, it was enabling. Kuro continued, "Imagine a river that gives all its water at once. What happens to the land downstream during drought?" Riken stared into his cup of tea, the steam rising like questions he hadn't dared to ask himself. That night his sleep was restless. He dreamed of an orchard where trees withered after fruiting too much, too soon, leaving behind barren fields and desperate farmers. The test of fire one morning, the villagers brought a young man named Yuto who had fallen into debt from gambling. They begged Riken to give him gold to repay the lenders. Despite his fellow monks' protests, Riken handed over the monastery's last reserve. Kuro said nothing, but his eyes reflected quiet disappointment. A week later, Yuto returned. Not to thank Riken, but to ask for more. He had gambled again. The monks were furious, but Riken remained calm. "We must show patience," he said. That night, Kuro placed a stone on Riken's meditation mat. When Riken asked why, Kuro replied, "Every time you carry someone who won't walk, you collect a stone in your heart. One day, you will sink." The next morning, Riken woke up earlier than usual. He watched the sunrise from the temple gates, feeling an unusual heaviness in his chest. The stone Kuro had placed wasn't just physical, it mirrored the emotional weight he had long ignored. Later that day, Riken noticed that even the birds that flocked to the monastery gardens had begun to fight over the food scraps instead of singing in harmony. It was a reflection of what was happening inside the temple, a growing chaos born from unchecked giving. The Mirror of Truth Kuro took Riken on a journey to a neighboring village where a monk named Shun had created a thriving monastery. People came there to learn, contribute, and grow, not just take. "How did you achieve this?" Riken asked Shun. Shun answered, "I learned to say no. Help is sacred. It must not become a transaction. I help only those who are willing to help themselves." Riken watched as villagers cleaned, cooked, and meditated in harmony. The energy was peaceful, not strained. No one looked to Shun as a savior. They saw him as a guide. Shun added, "Boundaries are not cruelty, they're clarity. We don't serve others by abandoning ourselves." That night, Riken sat in silence, the seed of wisdom beginning to blossom. He began to understand. True giving didn't mean sacrificing the self. It meant empowering others to rise. He realized something profound. Real compassion wasn't about saving others. It was about guiding them to save themselves. That was the beginning of Riken's transformation, not just as a monk, but as a master. The courage to change, returning to his monastery, Riken began to change his ways. He started asking those who came for help to participate in chores, prayers, or meditation first. Many left angry. A few stayed and transformed. He created guidelines offering help with mindfulness, not emotion. The monastery began to thrive again. The monks regained their peace. Visitors who stayed now felt connected to the place. They weren't just takers, but participants in a shared journey. But it wasn't easy. Doubts plagued Riken. Was he being selfish? Cold? Kuro reminded him, "You are no longer giving to feel worthy. You are giving to empower. That is true compassion." With each no he uttered, a space was opened for a deeper, more lasting Even nature seemed to respond. The koi in the temple pond swam more freely, and the old pine tree near the gate sprouted new branches, reminders that when we protect our energy, life itself becomes more vibrant. The return of the taker one day, Yuto returned. He asked for more help. But this time, Riken asked, "What have you done since we last met?" Yuto hesitated. "Nothing, I waited." Riken didn't offer money. Instead, he offered Yuto work in the gardens and a place to sleep in exchange. Yuto stormed off, yelling that Riken had changed. "Yes," Riken said to himself, "I have." That night, he sat in front of the Buddha statue and whispered, "Compassion without responsibility is a wound disguised as love." The other monks felt relief. The energy of the temple lifted. Even the cherry blossoms bloomed more vibrantly that spring. And deep within, Riken felt something he hadn't felt in years. Lightness. The power of boundaries news spread of the new way of the monastery. Fewer people came, but those who did stayed, grew, and gave back. Riken found himself lighter, more peaceful. He meditated deeply again. His teachings gained depth. He no longer feared saying no, because it meant saying yes to what mattered. Visitors began to treat the temple as a sacred place, not a charity. They left with more than what they came for, not things, but wisdom. Riken had become what he was always meant to be, not a savior, but a mirror. Kuro eventually left, but his final words stayed with Riken. Helping without wisdom is like pouring water into a broken cup. Boundaries are not walls, they are bridges to true connection. Riken carved those words into a stone near the temple bell, where all who entered could read them. The enlightenment of letting go years, Ader. Riken shared this story with a new monk who reminded him of his younger self. The young monk asked, "Master, when do we stop helping?" Riken smiled. "We never stop helping. We just learn to help with clarity. True help uplifts both the giver and the receiver. Anything less is charity with chains." Riken closed his eyes, the wind rustling through the pine trees. He had finally found what he had been searching for all along. Not peace through pleasing others, but peace through presence, purpose, and profound boundaries. Each morning now, Riken would ring the bell with intention, not as a call to service, but as a reminder. You cannot pour from an empty cup. And sometimes, the greatest help you can offer is teaching someone to help themselves. Dear viewers, remember this. You are not here to carry everyone. You are here to walk your own path with grace and offer your hand only to those who wish to walk beside you. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to Beyond Nirvana. Let us walk this journey of wisdom, peace, and true compassion together.